Well, hello. In this video, I'd like to talk about the concept of abstraction and the use of encapsulation to achieve abstraction. So let's take a look at some examples I've created for us. So abstraction is one of the three pillars or key principles of object-oriented programming. Encapsulation is the mechanism that you use to achieve abstraction in many cases, so you will see people interchange the words abstraction and encapsulation. They just kind of mix them. Some websites you go to may say that the three principles of OOP are encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance, but really a better definition is abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. And the reason for that is abstraction is a concept, encapsulation is a way of achieving that concept. Let's drill into it with some examples. So in this example chunk of code, I have declared a couple of variables, and I made a function, and I go through and I divide two numbers, number 1 and number 2, and print out the result. You'll notice that I'm printing the result directly from the function, and that's not considered a best practice. It violates the concept of separating the data processing and presentation layers that we talked about in the last module. It also means that I'm referring to variables that were defined outside of it, outside of the function divide values, and I'm using them inside. Now Python lets me do it. It's not that it doesn't work. Come on, go away. It does work. It just doesn't, it's just not considered a good design. Okay, what are you complaining about? It says something about the non-UTF-8 code starting at line 13. And this is usually some artifact of Word when I copy and paste. Let's see if we can find it. I don't trust their line. Last time it was, this had been changed into some unrecognizable character. So I'm going to take these out and see if that's it. Chances are it is. Yep, it was somewhere in there. Now I'm going to leave this in the video. It's right in here somewhere. I'm not sure what it is. Ah, it's a smart quote. Smart quotes are the devil, I'll tell you. This guy right here is the offending issue. If you get something like this, watch for that feature. The other one was Microsoft's Word tried to fix two dashes by making it into something different, making it into a long dash, and that causes problems sometimes. Anyway, this is the issue. It's a smart quote, and Microsoft is helping me out by putting that in there. So I'm going to actually just take that out. Okay. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to show you, but it was a good opportunity to show you what happens when you copy and paste my code out of Word. Sometimes you get these weird errors. Okay, I'm going to enter a first number, enter a second number, and we get 5 divided by 2. So it's working, but there's a couple of issues. First of all, the issue, the rules of object-oriented programming are that you should provide abstraction by encapsulating chunks of code. Let's see if I can be a little more clear about that. Divide values has a reference to code outside of the function itself. This means that I have to make sure that if I want to use this function in another program, another script at a later point in time, like let's say I go through and I add another script to this. I want to go ahead and reuse this code. It is not self-sufficient. It refers to things outside of it. It's not a complete capsule of code. Reusability is one of the biggest reasons why you use object-oriented programming techniques. You want to make things so that you write the code once but use it many times. The mechanism of encapsulating your code so it's one complete capsule, if you would, of code is kind of handy, because if you do that, you should be able to use that capsule of code in a bunch of different scripts without having to modify the code inside of the function to match whatever other items are going on in your script. So this is one of the reasons why you want to do this. Another reason why you don't want to reference things outside is, or excuse me, wants to use code like this is that I have to know what's going on inside the function to be able to use it. In other words, I have to know that this number and this number are being divided. I can't be ignorant of the internal workings of the function and still make it work. That's not true with functions that are well designed. Like, do we know what input does explicitly or inside of its code? We don't. I don't think any of us have. I haven't looked up exactly what the source code is for the input function. I know that if I enter in some text, it will print that out and then wait for me to enter in a value. I know what it does, but I don't know the internal workings of it. As such, I can work with that function input in the abstract. I don't need to know the intimate details of it. But if somebody was using divide values, and let's say that they couldn't see the actual code inside, that code was hidden from them, they would not know how to use this without actually looking inside. There's no help associated with it. When I go through and I just put in the parentheses, there's nothing popping up saying what needs to be included. It's pretty much obscure at this point, which is not necessarily bad, but it's obscure in such a way that I won't know how to work with it without actually knowing the internal workings. So what you want to do is you want to make your code reusable in a way, by writing your code in a way that people can use your code in the abstract. Abstraction is a very valuable design process. And it's not very difficult to do. It just usually involves making your code a complete encapsulated unit of code for reusability. Now that's the concept that we're talking about here. Another thing I should mention is that this is using print inside of the function isn't usually considered a good choice either. The reason for that, of course, is that the function combines processing and presentation. Presentation should be something separate from the function, unless that function's job in life is to present something. For example, print is a function. Its job in life is to present something, so that's perfectly fine. Once again, we don't know about the internal workings of print. It's just something that we can reuse in a lot of our programs. Now, these concepts may seem difficult, but as you start practicing your code, you'll find that it's pretty easy to actually absorb the knowledge without having to overthink it too much. Basically, the idea is that whenever you're working with code, think about how it could be reused in other scripts later on, and write your code so that it's more reusable. The mechanism of encapsulation is something that you want to strive for because it allows you to achieve the concept of abstraction. And as we go forward, I'll just keep showing you examples until you get it. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Let's take a deeper look at functions in the next video. See you there.